later works. No sane historian would doubt, for example, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ existed and he preached in Arabia and he had this kind of belief about him. No sane wonder. Hyperskeptic, revisionist, fruitcakes may believe in that. Just like hyperskeptic, revisionist, fruitcakes believes Jesus did not exist.
Yeah.
He accepts Jesus doesn't exist because...
He didn't claim to be God.
Camille.
Don't engage with him. No,
that's fine. Come to me about
You're right. You're right. I'm corrected.
You can't help me.
We agree there are Christians, because of this consistency approach, they will say, because we have a historian who doubts the existence of Christ, Christ didn't exist. They need to be consistent. So now maybe that is the view. Christianity didn't exist. All of these writings, come on, doesn't matter. Do you see the point? So that's why we call them fruitcakes, because these are hyper-skepticism. They go against history. So when it comes to miracles,
what happens when the Quran says that Jesus is crucified? Isn't that being a fruitcake?
Hey, my conversation with him. Stop it.
Go for it, but seriously. Okay, that's fine. No worries.
Do you understand English? She said go away.
No, say it in Arabic, Mansur, please.
She said go away.
In Arabic, Mansur. Appreciate it.
Go away. She said go away, not me. She said go away.
No problem. Go for it.
She said go away.
Alright, sorry, you were saying.
He has no respect for you.
It's okay, but that's what hecklers do. I'm sure this,
Right, I agree that you've understood. Now we're on the same boat, that you agree that he's a heckler. Good. So now we move on. So,
but to say, there's probably, I don't know about...
So that book about 300 authenticate miracles, in your mind is this: the Quran denies the miracle performed by the Prophet ﷺ, so how can he have done miracles? As I explained to you, the Quran does not deny. The Quran denies what thing? Miracles as expected by people, demanded by people. God doesn't give in to these kind of things. God gives his own miracle. And that's why you will find within the Christian text, there's one point Christ said, I think I mentioned this before, no sign will be given to you except the sign of Jonah. So Christ himself make a condition. I'm not going to give you all the signs that you demand. Do this, do that, whatever. Nothing will be given to you. No sign, except one sign. So here we have a consistency of the messengers in terms of how they deal with these kind of hecklers at their times, trying to give me evidence. They do not fall for their trap, right? And their ego business of, give me something I will believe. In fact, they would not believe. So the Quran tells us that this is a miracle. The Quran, it says itself consists of evidence, ayat. Every single verse, we don't use the word verse, but you know what a verse is, a sentence, is called an ayah of the Quran. An ayah is a miracle, a sign, a proof, an evidence, all of that. Quran itself, in its individual component, is called a miracle.
Yes, I want to come back to that, because that's probably, actually, of all the things that we talked about, that's the only thing, probably the one that speaks to me the most, is the inimitability of the Quran. I think it's because I'm a linguist.
Did you watch ChatGPT?
I did. It was really interesting. Yeah. I need to do more research on this.
Please do.
Yeah. You mentioned actually in that video, you mentioned the lectures that you did on the and I couldn't find those. So I don't know.
So the lectures are called I'll show you which ones, so you can listen to them. There's 3 parts, 3 lectures in 3 occasions. Yeah. So let's see which ones they're called in Dawah wise. I mean, what it will save me from giving you all that information that I did in three parts, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. It's called Linguistic Miracle of the Quran.
Okay.
There's 3 parts in Dawah wise. Yeah?
Okay. All right.
Okay. So originally it was uploaded in a different one, so that's fine.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into too much detail on that, but that's probably out of all the things that I've heard, that's the only one that I can't. Watching your video is actually really interesting too, and I think I need to. And I think that's probably an ambition of mine, of actually learning Arabic and understanding how it works. So I can't really debate that, but the superficial understanding that I have is that it might have been because the Quran was actually influenced by other languages like Syriac or that kind of stuff. Is there anything to that? Is that something you addressed in the lectures?
Yeah, but the question is, we're talking about the Arabic language itself. Even though the Quran can have words of different linguistic origin, the fact remains the composition of such a way. It's not just individual vocabulary.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the word illiyin, the word sirat, they may have a cognate or something similar preceding the Arabic language, but the Quran can either use something from another linguistic culture and use it and Arabize it to the Arabic people for their understanding, because no need to reinventing wheel. Within the Arabic grammatical linguistic vocabulary structure, within the framework of the Arabic vocabulary, because you know how the words are derived. For example, the word globalization didn't exist in the Arabic corpus, but now, what does it say in Arabic? Globalization? Awlama. The root words are ayn, lam, mim. Right, to know. Alima, ya'lamu, to know. And from this, like, you can grab so many different meanings. Globalization, where you can have the world, and because of a root word, it can have meaning attached to it. For example, the word alaqa, the Quran says how human beings go through the stages of alaqa. And people say, oh, that's wrong, it doesn't mean that. But if you look at the word alaqa, in its root word means it's some connection, something that is hanging. So a mu'allaq, that you know, if you see some traditional places in my country or in Arab country, they make something with rope and so on, and they hang their pots and things on that. This is called mu'allaq, right? Alaqat, relationship, because we hang with each other, right? So each word can be derived from a root word. This is beauty of Arabic language, and of course probably Semitic language the same, right? So when it comes to the Quran and its linguistic miracle, of course the Quran brings in new terms which the Arabs didn't know them before, but it Arabizes them from the Arabic stock. So the word Quran itself, you'll be surprised, was not known to the Arabs what it meant. There is no pre-Islamic poetry which has the word Quran in it, because it didn't, this particular form, Quran, did not exist in their vocabulary. So the Quran introduced even the name of this book, which they're not familiar with, but something from a root word, qara'a, is meant to recite, to read, and so on, in that form. The word surah, a chapter, was not known to the people in this meaning. Surah was like a fence. But the Quran is introducing a meaning, and it describes suratun anzalna, and so on, and it tells you what it means, at the same time defines it. It has a border, a fence all around it, a thematic unity. The word ayah, verse, and ayah wasn't known to them in the meaning. To them, ayah had a different meaning. So the Quran introduces even the words with a newer meaning and explains and defines as it goes along. So the new language the Quran brings, which they couldn't have thought about, the Quran within its recitation, it explains it. So people didn't have, oh, you're speaking gibberish. You know, when a child speaks gibberish, after hearing few times, a mother or a father, a brother, sister, don't know what it means. If you heard it first time, you didn't know what it means. The child speaks gibberish. The Quran came and spoke in a language which was unknown to them in their mind, but they understood. Not only that this is an eloquent way of expressing it, but they understood the meaning, and yet it wasn't in their vocabulary. That is the linguistic secrets of the Quranic language.
Yeah, I'll watch your videos and I'll come
Please
back to
do, please do.
But that, to me, that's the only one where everything else I'm kind of like, that doesn't really...
Contradictions. What about the contradiction claim? If the Quran was not from if the Quran was not from God, it was from anyone else other than God, then you will find many ikhtilafan.
Yeah, well, that I never really quite understood that point, because to me there are lots of places that seem to contradict each other.
Do you agree in principle? A book from God talking about history, about future, about contemporary affairs, about secrets of your heart, about the natural world, about politics, anthropology, sociology, all these things, if a book from God is talking all about it, it should be free from errors and contradictions. Or should it be...
In principle, yes, but if it's
Yeah.
been mediated through humans, then it's subject to errors.
No,
with them.
first of all, in principle, this is what I'm asking. You expect
Yeah.
a book of God should be free from errors. So when the Quran makes that claim that this is the Quran with all its forms of guidance on every aspect of life, it talks about embryology, it talks about astrophysics, it talks about biology, it talks about the ancient East and ancient West. If it wasn't from God, you expect it to be contradictory, erroneous, having lots of discrepancies. It's not that any book on any matter, if it's free from contradictions from God, a phone book may be free from contradictions, but it doesn't make it from God. But the phone book does not talk about the ancient world and the future world and the humans and the natural world. If it did, then you expect it to contain mistakes.
But then on that point, then why would verses be abrogated then?
No, abrogation is of what? Abrogation, God says very clearly that ma nansakh min ayatin aw nunsiha. Is it how it goes? Anyone knows the ayah? We do not. What's the ayah? Na'ti bi khairin minha aw mithliha. Right? So he does not abrogate or makes an ayah forgotten until he brings something better or similar to it. It's all about making the society in the what's this called? Rehabilitating them and making them. So God can condition a society with a set of particular specific laws, and then He will say, that's fine, now we have different laws. Just like, say, a law of Adam alayhi salam and his children, how they had to, twin sets had to marry each other, to human beings to procreate, because there wasn't another human being separately created and they married, because only one man and one woman, from them we all came. So the law of, for example, marrying sisters and brothers is now no longer applicable, but at that time it was okay. So God, for a community, He can instill and give guidance and laws, and He can say these are no longer necessary for now, but for future that is not necessary.
Well, then why would certain verses like the one about slavery not be abrogated then?
Could be slavery will be, as I said, certain laws can be there because it will take long time, as we explained before, to get it eliminated. Or slavery will be there such that it will be very difficult to eliminate. So that means conditions may be there and you need to have rules and regulations and solutions for it.
So we're getting new Quran verses, like sometime in the future?
Do you follow? So God
Yeah, but
here is not abrogating slavery. This is a law. He is trying to encourage it to be eliminated through the processes and mechanism God has put in place.
Can God ever make a mistake?
What do you think?
I'm asking you in your...
I will answer, but what do you think?
No. I'm asking your opinion of it.
I will answer.
So that's why I'm asking the
Mansur
question.
Sure.
can give answers.
Wait.
God will never make mistakes.
So God can never make a mistake.
Of course not.
Okay, so everything that we are going through right now, every error in the world, every disaster that we're going through, along with all the good, that's all part of God's plan. Is that what you're telling me, yeah?
I'm telling you, anything that happens, it happens with the will of God.
Yeah, I know. Listen, the will. Understand what I'm not really concerned about the will. I'm saying, is He aware? Is that part of
He's
the
aware.
plan? So there's no, everything's going to plan.
Nothing can go against His plan.
So
Everything is going to His plan.
Right.
Nothing can go against the plan of God.
Right. So all of the disasters that are going on right now, that
Everything.
everybody is enduring,
Everything.
This is part of God's plan.
Everything.
In order to do what? What's the process?
It's a bit worse than this.
What's
So,
the end? What's the end?
hang on.
What's the end?
What I want to understand is this. One second. Before I go into answering one question after like a series of questions.
Sorry,
No problem. I want to understand one thing.
Yeah.
What does that prove? That God doesn't exist?
What does what?
What does your questions prove? If there is evil in the world, what does it prove? If there is suffering, one second. If there is suffering in the world, if there is all this evil in the world, what does it prove? Does it prove this non-existence of God?
No, I'm just trying to understand the logic of things, right? Because there is so many things happening, but you have to throw some sort of logic by it.
Yeah.
And if logic comes correct and you say there is no problems, there is no error, and God hasn't done...
It's not about error.
What I just said, has God ever made a mistake?
Let me come back to you again.
No,
This is not about an error. This is not a human experiment that God has, in which human has a trial and error and God didn't know about it and God regretted it. What we're saying is, God has given in this world, which is not utopia. This world is a place of test. There will be suffering. there will be these kinds of evils and things like this. There will be pain, but there will also be joy. There will be a contrast between good and evil, and you, acquainted with the faculty of choice, of knowing what is good and evil, you're obligated to fulfill your purpose in life by balancing these things and worshipping God, and then God will place you in a place of no evil, no pain, no suffering. That's paradise. Or you're not listening. You're formulating your question. No, stop. No. When you asked a question,
So the problem of evil, that, you know, when at the beginning when I was saying I have things that I think Christianity and Islam don't have good answers to.
Yeah.
The problem of evil is obviously one of them, right? It's a very famous kind of philosophical problem, whatever. So your point there is that because this world is a test, this life is a test. That's why there is evil in the world and suffering. So that makes sense. I would agree with that. But then, what is the meaning of menial suffering, or for instance, animal suffering? So animals don't have an afterlife.
Say two animals fought with each other. One broke his horn or something like that. In the day of judgment, God will recompense them. God will recompense them.
But
Even animals.
Do animals have a soul in Islam?
Animals? What do you think? I don't think animals have souls.
Well, yeah, so
Animals,
so
do they have souls?
Yeah, so if they don't have souls, then how do they have an afterlife?
No. They don't have afterlife.
Okay, so
they won't have afterlife.
Okay,
In a day of judgment, if they have disputes like you're saying, questioning, or what are they going to do? Something has happened, like one animal violated another animal, whatever. Yes, they will be given, and that will be it. That's it.
But so then, what in this life then?
Because the one reward, perpetual life, is the human that's going to have. That is what God created us for. So the animals and so on and so forth, these are all, in fact, Allah says in the Quran, everything here, وَسَخَّرَ لَكُمُ الشَّمْسِ, even the sun has been created to be subservient to us. وَالْقَمَرِ, and the moon. Everything of the creation that you see has been created for us to be our subservient, so that we can enjoy our life and fulfill our obligation in this life.
Okay, but fine. But if you take that, there are millions of years during which there are no humans on the planet, right? There are millions of years where
I don't know it's millions of years, but
yeah, at least
enough time.
Whatever, enough time.
Yeah.
So what was the point of all that then? All that suffering that happened during that?
What do you mean by suffering?
Well, I mean,
God, look. Let's understand suffering again. When you say suffering, so when a lion eats a zebra or a deer, you're saying the zebra is suffering.
Yeah, pain, I guess.
Yeah, pain. And you're saying that shouldn't be the case. So the lion should have been created without any hunger or thirst.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what you're asking for
exactly.
is what will be provided in heaven, where you would not need to eat, but you will eat for pleasure.
Yeah, but precisely because I understand the point that you're making is that the meaning of pain and suffering for humans is that it's a test, it's to, all that kind of stuff. That's what we're talking about. But for animals who don't get an afterlife, well, what's the point of their suffering?
Because they don't have the spiritual necessity to have an enjoyment or a punishment in the hereafter.
So
God did not create them that way. God created them, and that's it. So if, for example, if an animal were to have, something was violated against them in the day of judgment, that will be it, and that will be it. That's it. They will be turned into a dust, and that will be it.
Yeah, I mean,
they don't need a continuous hereafter. This judgment is done between them, and that's it.
Yeah, but to me that's a difficult statement to reconcile with the fact that if you've got an animal that's suffering, not in a way that's completely independent of a human being.
I understand. When God gives His judgment, punishment and reward, nothing will be in such a way that will be called least of injustice. لَيْسَ بِظَلَّامٍ لِلْعَبِيدِ. He is not to the least unjust to His worshippers. So in the day of judgment, whatever recompense they have, everyone will be happy and content. You and I may disagree now. Oh, look, how can it be? How can a murderer, the victim, and the one who commit the criminal, at the end of the day judgment, they will have some kind of judgment. The victim himself, herself, or itself will agree to the judgment that is given, and the consequence that follows will be content with it. That is what we're talking about, because God will not be unjust to any of those things that we're describing in terms of pain and suffering. I gave an example, I think, before. The person who was in hellfire, say for a long time, was just dipped into heaven for a fraction of a second. And God, this is in the hadith of our Prophet ﷺ. I'm not just making this up. Did you know anything about sorrow, pain, suffering? That person may have been there for millions of years in hellfire. One dip in heaven will say, no, I knew nothing of pain and suffering prior. Because this recompense, the compensation that is provided, to give you an example of compensation, someone stole your watch. The compensation, £1 billion. All the cars you want, all the money you want, all the land you want. You would not think about loss anymore about your watch. Now with this money, you can get hundreds and thousands of watches. The compensation God provides, as He confirms and if He affirms, will be to such a scale, no one can complain against God. They will be happy and content. That's the level of justice that we are saying God will provide. So we have firm faith in that. In terms of the actual mechanism, in terms of what's going to happen, that's the detail. But God has confirmed, لَيْسَ بِظَلَّامٍ لِلْعَبِيدِ, for His worshippers or anyone, His slaves, He's not to the least unjust. Dhallam is like the highest oppressor, right? But He's not even to the least any of that. Because He is just al-adil. Not only adil, like justice. Sometimes Christians say God is love, and we say God is loving. In Islam, one of the attributes of God is al-adil. Justice. Not just, but justice. Al-haq, truth. You say like someone is truthful, but Allah is al-haq, truth. So yes, there are certain attributes in which the adjective is used in such a way rather than, say, a noun. Yeah? Just to demonstrate the grievousness of these concepts and attributes. So the problem of evil is only a problem to the atheists and the Christians because their theodicy is such that they may have to explain it in that way. In Islam, we believe Allah is wise as well as someone who is well-wisher of any good, like He is the one who is the source of all truth. Because of His wisdom, that is why He even says, for example, you see the good and the bad, the one who sees and the one who doesn't see, how can you judge equally? The contrast is there for us. Would you know what is happiness if you didn't know anything about pain? You would not appreciate in its full depth what is really. You see, when we suffer pain and then we have happiness before or after, we appreciate more. So the appreciation is in contrast.
Yeah, I think
that is why in this world you have that contrast.
That makes sense.
In heaven, there is no contrast. Pure joy, pure happiness, no suffering, no sorrow, no grief.
But that makes sense because you've got the afterlife. So it makes sense for humans, but it doesn't make sense for animals.
As I said, the animals, they will have their recompense and their compensation that they will have. And even if that is the end of it, because God's plan, look, God could have. Okay, one thing I want to ask you: why do you expect God to make you live forever and forever? Why would you expect God to create you and give you a life of eternity with no end? Why? It's God's choice. He could create you and that's it. So He could create animals and that's it. They're only a mechanism in this life, how we understand and how we develop ourselves.
Yeah, animals die and suffer. Right?
Yeah, but I'm saying all of that has a compensation. People get killed, are compensated.
But the recompense is the afterlife.
No, I'm saying they do not have to have a continuous means of afterlife in which they have to live forever within the animal kingdom and so on and so forth. If their existence is annihilated and only thing is there, like if you wish something, I want to eat the meat of a bird, and the bird is now created, comes up to you, and then you eat of that meat and so on and so forth. But they do not have to have. If you want, for example, I'm sure, if you want, I want a pet dog in hereafter. This is your wishes. If that doesn't contradict anything of God, I'm sure it will be granted. But we don't go into all of these details if the guidance from Islam is silent about it. Like somebody says, I want to play football, I want to win. And he says, I want to win too in the match. Well, that cannot be granted. Why? Because you're generating contradictions. In heaven, there cannot be contradictions. There cannot be conflict of will. People say, look, in the Quran or in Islamic teaching, you believe everything that you wish will be granted. So you say, I want to play against Mansur, and I want to win, and Mansur wants to win. How can you win a game Both cannot win.
So what
So,
happens?
so this kind of wishing would not be given. Contradictions, logical impossibility will be removed.
Well, I guess, so is it that...
And I gave an arbitrary example. There could be many examples where you generate contradictions, you create a very incoherent picture. What we are saying, the Quran tells you there will not be any ill feelings, any grief, and so on and so forth. That means our human psyche will be transformed in such a way in which you would not wish where there will be generation of conflict of will, where logical impossibilities arise. Logical impossibilities would not arise in heaven.
But then, so I feel it's like one last point on that problem of evil, and I feel then I probably need to call it for a day. But again, but on that, so animals versus human, right? There's like a clear distinction between the two. Humans have souls, go to heaven, or to hell, but afterlife. Animals don't. But that is at odds with the fact that there's a continuum of evolution, and I'm not talking about necessarily the theory of evolution, but the facts of evolution, where it was animal, and at some point human, and there seems to be there's like a dichotomy. There's been something that's been said at some point. You're human, you get the soul, you get to go to heaven, and you have free will, and then everything that comes before that doesn't. And that to me is
I understand your point. What you're saying is, look, all form of creation should have some reward or punishment. A tree, for example, you're saying that tree provided the shade. It provided so much fruits and vegetables. It should be rewarded. It should have a heavenly life, afterlife, and so on. This is the expectation you are coming up with. I'm saying God can decide to continue the existence of something as long as He wants, according to His wisdom. He can have human beings forever and forever if He wishes. He can have certain creation up to that point if He wishes, for example. This is the prerogative of God, how He wants to continue the perpetual existence of certain form of creation. So the recompense, the reward or the punishment you're saying, you are expecting everything that is here on this world, even a bacteria, even the viruses. Let's talk about them. There are good bacteria in our gut that helps digestions. Are you expecting a reward for them that they should continue in the hereafter? You can bring in all of these things and you will say, I expect them to have a reward in heaven as well. So what we are saying is God in His wisdom, He has certain creation in mind to be rewarded in the hereafter. In His world of creations, for example, He can create a world in which there are other creation with other rewards, other punishment. God is constantly creating. This world of ours is one of these many worlds. So we have a companion who says there's like a parallel worlds. There are parallel prophets, parallel you over there. God can create that. But what we're dealing with is our existence, our soul. You and I know, I'm not Camille and you're not Mansur. We have our individual existence and awareness of the existence. What is there for us is a continuity of life with given a new body of our soul, because what I am my soul with my body that can be changed and rechanged if necessary. In the hereafter will be a different body, and a mechanism to enjoy what I've done here. And that enjoyment would be spiritual, would be physical, and so on. Now, if, for example, I'm saying, look, I'm not giving you a blanket statement about animals. I am saying if there is nothing contradictory, and people wish, and even God has some, I don't know all the text. If someone can correct me, if there are texts in which there are animals can live, no problem. I don't see any problems. But I'm saying, in general, even if there wasn't a afterlife for animals, this is the prerogative of God in which any suffering they had, they will be compensated, and they will not feel in any way unjustly treated.
So I agree. I mean, you can explain away to some extent everything on that, but it is a very contrived. Very contrived.
I will come back with beneficial bacteria. According to your expectation, there should be beneficial bacteria having reward. So we want now bacteria in heaven.
I'm not actually. There is an alternate explanation. The simpler explanation would be there is a God that has set up a bunch of rules, laws, and created the universe, created the things, and let them, all of them, evolve and develop according to His plans. But it's not materially then intervening on, you'll get a reward, you won't get a reward. It's just like this all.
The question is about continuity of existence. So we are told we will have continued existence either in heaven or in hell. Okay. The jinns is another creation, likewise. In terms of other creation, for example, now if somebody questioning about viruses and bacteria, certain bacteria is good for you, right? In their gut, they really help digest. You do know that, right? In fact, people take probiotic, full of bacteria, isn't it?
Yeah.
We actually consume bacteria for the goodness of our gut. So if people say now, okay, what's the reward for them in the hereafter? Should they be in heaven as well? Well, if God wants to have their bacterial heaven, of course he can have a bacterial heaven for them and so on. But God is interested in the humans in terms of what we are, rather than, you interested in everything else. There are many things which are not necessary for us to delve into. If you do have questions, that's why the Quran at one point said, look, if you have questions like this while the Quran is being revealed, then it will be answered. Like if you have,
Yeah, actually, a question on that. Because obviously in the Christian understanding, the reason why God cares about humans is because humans were created in the image of God. But that's not the case in Islam, right? So in Islam, why does God care about humans specifically, as opposed to everything else in his creation?
God considers human beings one of the best of creations. In the eyes of God, one of the best, ashraful makhluqat, one of the best of creations. Allah created us. In fact, if you think about it, we are the top of the food chain in that manner. In fact, human beings are going to space, not an elephant or a bacteria, human beings. So God created us in this way, and he has the whole human project in a way that the consequences of them is going to be either eternal heaven or eternal hell, like that. But in doing so, human beings are placed in an environment in which there are other forms of creation. And we have to encounter and engage with these creations in the best possible way. That is why Islam says look after your environment and look after the things in your environment. Don't go and kill unnecessarily, unless, for example, for food and so on. So we can't have a farm of rabbits only for fun by hunting with our foxes. Totally forbidden, because that's suffering for fun. But God has granted us permission to consume some animals for food. But he doesn't grant us to eat all forms of food, because he says there are some which are good for you and some which are not. Halal and tayyiba, we talked about pure and permissible. So we only consume what God has given permission for, which are by their nature, they're good and they're permissible.
If you're interested, I can show you where they believe also that
Camille?
was made.
What's any next question?
I mean, I think for today is probably enough.
Okay,
I've got
that's
more
fine.
that I need to go and read them. I think
Sure.
the big thing that I need to, I feel like that's going to be a big
Inimitability.
project is the
Inimitability, certainly. Do watch the lecture. And in the meantime, take care and
Yeah, thank you again.
keep your
I
questions.
just want to say again, thank you for your time and thank you for being generous with your time. I really appreciate it.
No, you've been wonderful. Even with the hecklers, you stood your ground and you told the heckler to go away. That was really, really good. And I hope the heckler at least appreciates what it means.
The whole hecklers, whatever. Ultimately, something that. Wait, hang on. I just want to say something about engaging with the whole Christians and Muslims. A lot of what you see on the internet is about clashes between the two. I'm actually much more interested in engaging honestly with, and I find that all the Muslims that I've interacted personally have been lovely people. Really interesting in what I have to say. I'm interested in what you have to say as well. So thank you, and I think that shows in the videos that you've got. So
You take care. Until next time.
Yeah, next time.
See you later. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.
Jazakallah, brother Mansur.
بارك الله فيك.